Welcome everybody to FSN's Franchise Development Supplier Discovery Day. I'm going to be your Bob Barker for today. I'm Zach Fishman. I'm the partner and COO of Franchise Supplier Network. As I'm sure you guys are wondering, how many podcasts does this guy do? It's a very valid question. But we're going to be doing a live webinar today, so you're going to have to look at my mean mug. I know I have more of a face for radio, but that's totally okay. Luckily, I have many people who do not. They have a face for TV, which is really good. So looking forward to bringing in my expert panelists in just a moment. Before I do, thank you all for actually wanting to be involved in Franchise Supplier Network, and Ryan, Dean, Brad, Lane, and myself really appreciate the interest that you have in us and what we can do for you. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about what we're doing in general, just go to our website, so www.franchisesuppliernetwork.com. If you found us on LinkedIn, you maybe haven't been to our website yet, so be sure to check that out. One of the people online here actually built it, so there you go. And then in addition to that, want to make sure that you guys also are aware of the events that we do that are kind of in conjunction with what we're doing at FSN. If you go to franchisors.com and you check out events, you'll see 3 events. You'll have Unconference, which is really our executive retreat event, which is happening in actually a month from today, which is very exciting. We also have Young Conference, which is really for next generation leaders in the franchise space. Ryan and I are really the spearheads of that, and that's very exciting. That'll be in Chicago in May. And then lastly, we have Springboard, which is kind of the big enchilada that has over 700 people a year now, which is really great. It is the #1 emerging brands conference in franchising, and so we'd love if you are listening and you are a franchisor that feels like they just don't really know what they're doing and want to know more. Springboard is the best place to do that. So if you have questions about that, feel free to message Ryan, Dean, or myself and through FSN's website on the Contact Us page, and we'd be happy to help you out on that. Okay, so for today, I have 3 expert panelists that are really best in class when it comes to technology in the franchise development world. As everybody knows, franchise development and technology don't often mix. However, today we are going to exemplify 3 particular companies, and really 4, I suppose, that really counteract that idea. I spent my career before being at Fishman PR and FSN and all the things I do at one of the companies that's actually going to be talking today. So I definitely have a unique perspective on how important technology is in the franchise sales process and in real estate and all the things that are required. And so I'm really excited to be able to bring this to you all today. So first, I want to introduce Nicole Amico, who is the COO of Metric Collective, who own, among other things, FranFunnel and Franchise Help. Nicole, I'll just let you kind of give a little insight into yourself, and then I'll move on to the next group.
Sure. Hi, Zach. Thanks for having me. I am Nicole Amico, the COO of Metric Collective, which is a vertically integrated holding company that owns Franchise Help, a lead gen portal, FranFunnel, a text automation software sales tool, and a franchise development arm, Oakscale, and then a private equity investment arm into franchises called Westside Brands. I've been with Metric for about 2 years, and I got into franchising about 4 years ago when I became a franchisee, which I think is the best entry into this industry because you feel all the pain and glory that comes along with that. Prior to that, I spent about 20 years in digital media in New York City at places like Condé Nast and startups. So I love the perspective that I bring to this space, and I'm very excited to chat with you all about everything Franchise Help and FranFunnel can do.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate it. And so, that, folks, is really the beginning of the cycle of the franchise sales process, both when it comes to lead generation and kind of a technology behind that, and then also when it comes to the lead nurturing piece. And I really kind of like to say that franchise development is separated into 4 different tranches here. The next person who I'm going to introduce, Mr. Jam. So Jam Hashmi is the CEO of FranchiseSoft, which is a software he'll tell you about in a second, and then also ClickText. So he has a unique perspective on really the entire sales process and also the beginning from the marketing side. So I'll let Jam introduce himself.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me on here. So a little bit about me was so I started franchising a little bit over 20 years ago now. So it seems like a long time. I spent the first 12 years of my life selling franchises for a brand. I placed about 600 locations for them, and I learned a lot about franchise development. We thought we were pretty high tech at that time, sending out PowerPoint slides and getting people on the phone to give them a visual and an audio at the same time. Obviously, things have evolved much more than that. I left that company about 10 years ago. I started my marketing agency, ClickText. We do websites and digital marketing. We work with just about 100 brands. And then I realized that there was need for a good franchise management software. So I had some spare time on the weekends, and I built a company called FranchiseSoft, which is a franchise CRM as well as a operations and management software. And so that's how I spend my time, just kind of between those two companies.
Nice. Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. And I think that, for folks who are kind of wondering how there are so many companies being represented on this thing, it is really because franchise sales really works in conjunction with each other in a lot of ways across the, really across the lead generation side, the lead nurturing side, and then, how you're actually educating your leads when they're in the process all the way down to when they're actually signed, and then you have to figure out the real estate. Those are really the four pieces of all of this. And the last person that I'm going to introduce obviously has, he has a unique perspective because he watched many of these franchise development processes for many years from, the largest trade organization in franchising, and now he is now the president of a really, really great supplier in the space that has a really, really interesting idea for franchise development. So I will let Mr. Greg introduce himself. So I have Greg Cook, who is the president of Silvercrest Advertising.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you for having us. I'm with Silvercrest Advertising. Greg Cook, as you guys know, hopefully some of you know who I am. Silvercrest Advertising is a technology company that engineers sophisticated marketing and media solutions for franchise brands with our proprietary technology, LMAP. And we are one of the few agencies out there that specializes in both consumer marketing and franchise development marketing. And so technology for us, and I'm so glad to be on today's podcast or webinar, is everything. We lead with it, end with it. It's a game changer for brands when they adopt it. And I know franchise brands sometimes can be slow on the uptick to embrace technology, but we're seeing that change since the pandemic, and it's been great. And so Silvercrest has been in business for 12 years now, specifically in the franchise space. And helping brands solve marketing challenges that they experience, and helping them grow, and most importantly, helping their franchisees become profitable. Prior to that, I've served time with the Entrepreneur Source, a coaching referral network, and then with the International Franchise Association. And so for the last 15, 16 years, I've been surrounded by franchise development. Seen some great strategies. I've seen some strategies that could be improved upon. And we're excited to share some of those best practices on today's webinar. So thank you, Zach.
Absolutely, of course. And thank you all for being here, and really, really happy that we could have you guys included in this. So Nicole, I think I want to start with you and talking about, the lead generation process in general, and what you guys are really seeing, through Franchise Help. You have kind of the unique ability to see a lot in terms of how brands present themselves. And, obviously lead generation portals have been something that have been around for quite a while, but interested to kind of hear your perspective on how you guys really play a role and how people can kind of get involved, and the types of brands that you really think make the most sense for a lead generation portal if they're listening, just so they kind of get an idea of really, who would make sense for Franchise Help.
Sure. So yes, portals have been around for a long time, but that means they've been able to perfect their craft over time. There are definitely multiple ways that you can, as a franchisor, find a franchisee out there. And one of the ways is portals, which is playing the game of using digital marketing to find people that are out there in the universe that would have no other way to figure out their next step with a franchise than going on the internet and saying, like, I am interested in buying a franchise. What is the next step in the process? As Franchise Help, the differentiating factor, this is not a sales pitch, but the true differentiating factor is that we take people through a quiz, which asks them questions that may help them understand what they're looking for. For instance, when I started my journey, I went what most people do, like with my passion point. I want to open a yoga studio. So that was the route I went down. And as you go down the process of buying a franchise, you realize it's more about unit economics, location, overhead. Do you want to be semi-absentee? So we really help our clients figure out, like, what, as a ZOR looking for Z's, what are you looking for? How saturated are you in the country already? Because we can ask these questions throughout our quiz. And then by the time somebody is done with our quiz, you have a lead where we know, one, it's a live person through our technology. We're able to see that they have an email and a phone number, and you want to make sure that you're finding people in the market you're looking for, that have the income you're looking for, that have the business background that you're looking for, and maybe if you're looking for a veteran. So it's great to capture that info for anybody out there. And then I would say for visitors that are debating what marketing strategies to use to find more Zs, you want to think about where the person is in their journey that you're looking for. So a person who is coming into any portal is definitely early on in their journey, Googling things on the internet and coming in, sideways to all these places. And, we say at Franchise Hub, well, we're taking them a little bit further down the funnel by asking them questions, but we're still very top of funnel. And it's important to know that. So I think for people who want to advertise on a portal and spend money on a portal, one, I definitely believe like it is still the most economic way to find a lead, no matter what portal you're working with. Like if you spend, $12,000 roughly and work a couple hundred leads on a portal, you will, high chances you will find a franchisee out of that versus a broker, which we know the fee is much more expensive. There are benefits to a broker too, but you have to think about the business that you have. So do you have a lot of open territories out there available? Is your franchise fee on the lower side? That doesn't mean extremely low, but people on the internet are not buying first-time Taco Bells. So you just have to think about like, where are you as a franchisor? How much is your fee? How much market do you have open? And that is the way to think about like casting a wide net on the internet and working with the portal.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's definitely helpful. And Greg, I kind of want to bring it to you because you guys play a pretty unique role as it relates to, taking a lot of this research and kind of being a bit more strategic on the data analysis side. That's kind of part of what LMAP does for franchise developers. So talk to me a bit about, some of the data that you guys are seeing on your end and how LMAP actually helps you guys to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it kind of starts with, the Franchise Sales Index report that FranConnex puts out every year. And it shows, it's like Groundhog's Day. It's the same result year after year, where the industry average is a 1% conversion. And so for us and our clients, we look at it a little bit differently, and we think that all brands ought to consider this, including traditional sources. We're definitely big on them as well. But creating ideal franchisee personas is critically important. And using first and third party data to get a sense of who that individual is and where they live helps you with, increasing that conversion rate. It's really, the only way to kind of increase that conversion rate. And I know that the 1% is, that's over 3,000 brands and industries vary. I still think portals play a very important role. If you're a micro emerging brand and no one's ever heard of you, but if you have, a foothold in the market and you're looking to grow and try to understand, are these individuals financially qualified? Do they have the minimum credit qualifications? We can help create shortcuts for you and using data aggregation. And so by having relationships with the top data aggregators out there, it allows us to pull everything in, and then we can kind of look at the psychographics, the demographics, the age, credit qualification. Are they married? Being married is very important to a lot of brands when they're considering a candidate. But the data is different for where you are and the life cycle of your system. So if you're a system with 25 units or more, it's likely that you have some top performing franchisees that you wish you could clone. And the corporate office are like, we wish we had 100 of those individuals. Well, through using first and third party data, you can create lookalike models in the desired areas of growth, and then understand where those individuals are and understand what media they're consuming. So, it is a way to kind of, get your message in front of the right audience, and if it makes sense, then they can take action. Now, if you're a micro emerging brand with 10 units or less, you're like, well, what am I going to target, right? I'll take anything, and I get part of that's true, but look, you have criteria included in your FTD. You have minimum financial thresholds. You have credit qualifications. And so, you can use a third-party data set to start targeting those individuals and then layer on the demographic data that you think would be pertinent to your system. And so, leveraging the technology of pulling in and housing all of these data aggregators into one platform helps us kind of, sharpen the pencil and make effective recommendations that will prove out time and time again, because the data doesn't lie. And so it's really important to have a powerful tool that can provide you with access to that for the brand.
Yeah, definitely very helpful. And I think data is king when it comes to franchising. And I know that we all remember a time when, nobody was using it and all the dinosaurs were saying that, no, we don't need that. I just kind of have a feeling, a gut feeling. And that's kind of how they were doing everything. And, we all know how that turned out. Many brands are in the graveyard, so to speak, because of that. And I know, Jam, you've been on the franchise development side before, so you certainly were smiling when I said that, as people can see. Once people are getting these leads and they're working them through the process, that's kind of where you guys come in at FranchiseSoft. Talk to me a bit about some best practices that you guys are recommending to your clients in terms of how to use your software to really be effective when it comes to, when they're first getting there all the way through the sales process itself.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. I mean, a couple of things that I will highlight here without being repetitive is that once you've identified who your persona is, and you've gone out there and utilized some of the fine folks here to go out there and generate those leads, you've got some data that those leads are coming in with: net worth, background, interests, other demographic data, location, and so on. The first thing that you should be looking at doing, especially because you're not going to get a one lead to one deal conversion. That's not realistic, right? As was mentioned in the Franchise Sales Index report, different lead sources have different conversion metrics. Broker leads have a 4 or 5% conversion metric. There are lead sources out there, especially Facebook leads, with all the Facebook iOS 14 updates, very limited. You got to go through hundreds of leads in order to go out there and find a deal. So a couple of things is, you, number one, have to have a structured sales process. So a lot of people use, what I call spreadsheets and rubber bands to hold their sales process together. And especially micro emerging or even emerging brands, sometimes they sign on with our software, and because you don't have to get everything in the software, our software is modular. So they only opt in for the cost-effective sales CRM. Now, if you got the sales CRM, oftentimes I'm asked, hey, do you actually build a sales process for us? Because we don't have one. And in my head, I'm thinking, you have 300 or 400 leads that are coming in. You've got to have a structured process with automation built in. Fortunately, we do offer kind of some best practices. It's actually like a 12-step franchise sales process that we've kind of picked up from all of our clients and built one. So I find that having that structured sales process is going to help not burn out your franchise development rep, who's going to be, dialing 6, 7, 8 times in order to go out there and make contact with some of the leads, because that's typically the amount of time you need to contact in order to, get somebody on the phone and get them moving forward in the process. Number one. And number two, and one thing that I don't think that franchisors are doing, or I think smart and savvy franchisors are doing, is that they'll take the data from the lead source that they've captured. So, for example, if you're generating leads using Greg's sending you 7 other points of data beyond first name, last name, email address, and phone number. And similarly with Nicole, if you're getting that information from Franchise Help, why are you sending them all the exact same message? Why are you telling them, hey, thanks for your inquiry. I understand you're interested in learning more. Let's, here's something. Let's schedule a call. Imagine if there was the ability to cater your message specific to an individual based on what they've filled in and provided you. So if you could go out there and dynamically set up your email marketing and text message campaigns to go out there and bring in tags that hey, Greg, I understand you're looking for a business in insert city name, and you have an interest in such and such. Now, based on that lead source, if you're getting leads with similar data, you can actually have a different welcome message. And I always say, you're never going to send the same welcome message to a lead that you get from a broker as you would a lead from a portal. So why would you send the same message for a lead that you're getting from Facebook, where you're demographically targeting, versus a lead that you're getting from, classified ads? Like, those are different individuals. And of course, a strong CRM system with the ability to have a sales process that can be customized by lead source with messaging specific by lead source, I think that'll put you a leg above what everybody else is doing today.
Yeah, I agree. And that kind of leads us into that, the next question that I have for Nicole, of course. And Nicole, the other half of your day is spent in this world on the lead nurturing side. And I think that Jam's definitely right. When you're thinking about, why wouldn't you want to cater your message in the way in which somebody would want to be spoken to? I think that a lot of franchise sales, for some reason, it is typically the largest investment that people will make aside from their house, right? And I think that sometimes people just kind of treat their leads like crap, which I've never really entirely understood. And that's the world in which you live and breathe for half of your day. So I'm curious to hear, number one, we'll get to the funny stories of the things that I'm sure you've seen later. But I think that, what I'm curious to understand is, when you're thinking about best practices, can you elaborate a little bit more on what you see when you're thinking about that? And is there any kind of classifications or tags that that some of your clients may use that are particularly interesting that maybe people wouldn't think of?
You mean on FranFunnel for our initial outreach? So FranFunnel is our sales tool. That's a text automation software. So we will work with a client and say, let us hook up all your different APIs, sources for leads. And then the minute a lead hits, you can customize what the text will go to them automatically, unless you, for some reason, based on time zone, don't want it to go to them automatically. But it'll go to them automatically and it will be personalized. And that is what we think is a huge factor, because we're all used to getting texts. Number one, if I get a text that's from 5 numbers instead of a real phone number, like it even gets filtered into a different thing. So that's a easy no-brainer for people. Like, you should have it come from an actual phone number. And then what it says is key, and then it sounds personalized and not salesy. So were you raising your hand, Jam? Or are you just
no?
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like, sure. I would say like shorter is better in terms of language, like making it about them, not about you. I mean, we work on this a lot. Like what those little, like the best way to communicate any message is to use as few characters as possible, even when speaking or writing an email. So why would that not apply to text? No, so the person wants to feel like you are reaching out to them about them, not about you. So whatever it is that you can say to twist it so that it's not even twisting, but just make it about them, their journey, their process, and keep them engaged. And usually by keeping people engaged means saying like, I noticed your profile is very interesting. Well, but don't say why. Like, why is it interesting? Or like, you are a good candidate for this, but make it less salesy than that. So things that make the person think like, I wonder why I'd be good for this. Oh, that territory is open. Oh, you're interested. So we try and do short, personalized, unique, and fast. So, I mean, speed to lead is a phrase for a reason. It's true. And
Yeah,
custom.
absolutely. I think you're right. And I think that, that's putting people off on the right path in order to treat the lead properly. So when you kind of get to the middle of the process, when the sales begin, obviously it does take the magic of the franchise developers on the brand side to be able to make things happen. But there are also ways to ensure that people are kind of staying involved. And I know, Jam, that you guys obviously play a role in that in terms of that middle piece, which is really that, the piece where a lot of these things may get in trouble, honestly, is really at that point when maybe, you're really not staying on top of them and things of that nature when they're in the process itself. So talk to me a bit about some of the ways that FranchiseSoft can help with that in terms of, they have had that first phone call and like that first phone call is done. Then what? Like, how is the tech actually helping with that?
Yeah, we always say, marketing to someone, not only at the top of the funnel, but what's called middle of the funnel messaging. And then, of course, towards the end of the funnel will help your conversion rate reduce from, 700 leads to a deal down to maybe 100 leads to a deal. So there's a couple of ways that FranchiseSoft does it. In addition to just, of course, having email marketing and SMS campaigns that you can run dynamically over a cadence, that's fairly basic. I mean, you can find a lot of marketing tools, email marketing tools that do that. One of the things that our system does is we've actually built a module in our software called the Applicant Learning Center. And think about, I'll use a real life analogy. Think about the last time you went to buy a car. You didn't walk into the dealership the day you thought, hey, maybe I'm considering buying a car and go talk to a sales rep. This is one of the reasons why 50%, they say, of the leads that are generated for your franchise opportunity seldom contact you. Like, they're uncontactable. More than half, about half the leads, I think 40 to 50%, you're never going to get in touch with. The reason is, the last time I wanted to buy a car, I went online and I went and did research. I went and built a car. I added wheels to it. I even went out there and got financing all on my end through the internet before I went out there and decided, hey, I'm going to speak with a sales rep. Oftentimes, those individuals know more about the vehicle than the sales rep does by the time they're ready to talk to them. And so how do you go out there and allow users to do self-directed, on-device, on-demand research about your brand, part of that middle of the funnel selling, so that you can go out there and not appear so salesy? Because that's why they're avoiding you, right? They don't want to be pitched. And so certainly if you're doing consultative selling and you're just, showing them features and benefits of your product, that's great. But I'll tell you, most people still want to go out there and do self-directed research. And so our Applicant Learning Center is a portal that's built and designed, all brand compliant. Lead comes in, they're sent a link to a portal, much like an online course about your franchise opportunity. They can study the different sections, watch the different videos. It's multimedia rich. And they can even engage with the content by answering questions that the franchisor may ask to further qualify individuals as they move through that Applicant Learning Center. I think it's quite powerful because not only is it a good sales tool, but the real power is in the data on the back end, right? Imagine if someone's coming to your discovery day and you're all excited to talk about the lead generation and the marketing you're going to do for them, but they spent 3 hours before they boarded the plane looking at your financial requirements section. What does that tell you about what you should at least try to cover in your discovery day? So this is information that they may not readily make available to you. And that's one of the ways that, like a franchise candidate portal with information that you can go out there and have them self-study and learn. But on the back end, you're able to track what they're interested in, allows you to, again, increase that conversion and bring more people to that finish line.
Yeah, that's definitely very helpful. I think that the middle of the sales process is an underrated part that people don't really spend a lot of time on for some odd reason. But yet I think that it's where, it's where the magic has to happen. It's not only dependent on the skill of the franchise developer. You can utilize technology to be able to, carry that on in an efficient way as well. And so, when you kind of get to that point and when the sale is done, obviously, there are a lot of things, Greg, that your team has the capacity to do. But one of the things that I mentioned earlier is around really the real estate world and the site selection piece and all of that. And you guys play a very important role in that, and that you're really trying to provide data for people to, find those sites and the demographic data that's required to be able to, find sites that are going to make sense for them and are actually going to produce, a more likely unit economic level that people want to see. Talk to me a bit about how that works and what you guys are doing and the role you play there.
Yeah, and I think, site selection and successful franchisees, are great for validation. And so it's super important to have a strong, development strategy based on markets that have the highest probability for success. And so we know, there are brands that have different expansion models. And so our traditional model is the hub and spoke, right? So corporate's in the middle. You don't go too far out. Maybe it's, corporate doesn't want to go beyond a 4-hour drive. There's a number of different factors at play too. It could be supply chain, things of that nature, maybe a regional supply chain limitation. And then there's service-oriented brands where they can be headquartered in Washington, D.C., and they have no supply chain limitations and they want to grow. So suddenly they're now placing their first location in Texas. So think about the strain from a franchise operations perspective. And so for us, when we think about using data to help franchisors make strong, good, and educated decisions on where to expand to, it starts by looking at the areas that have the highest saturation of ideal franchisee personas, and then more importantly, ideal customer personas. And then beyond that, brands should start studying and understanding how many ideal customer personas are needed in a given trade area for a location to have a high probability of success. And when I say success, success for the most average of average operators. And so it's critically important that the executive team spend some time looking at what are the key criteria for a successful territory, and then from there, once you do figure that out, one, it's going to save you time. Two, it's going to save you money. Three, it's going to save you mistakes, so you're not in Washington, D.C. and putting your first location in Texas. And then most importantly, when done correctly, it's going to limit or mitigate any possibility. I mean, not any possibility, but it mitigates litigation. Because if I put that location in Texas and I can't adequately support that franchisee, and that individual starts looking at the black and white print of the agreement, now we're going to have problems. So, I think it goes hand in hand with putting together the correct criteria for your growth, and then maybe using some type of mapping technology so that you can actually visualize what that may look like. And then, there are instances as you continue to grow where you may want to hire specialists to do a white space analysis and make sure that you're not oversaturating a market or cannibalizing growth with your existing franchisees. So it gives you the ability for sustained growth. And I think when done correctly, you eliminate the guesswork. And so now you've set a path for continued growth that you'll be able to enjoy without any future issues. But things do evolve. But I think the buckshot approach of just, hey, we'll take anyone who can stroke a check and fog a mirror and worry about supporting them after the fact is not a good foundation in which to get your franchise system off the ground.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think that, also gone are the days of just kind of going into a retail space, but not actually having any visibility behind if it's going to work out or not. I think that there's just so much more data behind what, we can see today. And I think that obviously real estate is not exactly easy at the current moment, and the average per square foot in the US and Canada, in your case, Jam, is not exactly great. But, we are still trying to find ways to cut through the noise and kind of avoid a very costly mistake, both for the franchisee and a costly mistake in terms of a headache for the franchisor. So that's really what it's all about. So, in closing, guys, I want to make sure that we are sensitive to time here, because I know that people will likely tune out starting at about the half an hour to 35-minute mark. So what I want to kind of close this out as is that, folks, if you do have any other questions about how technology actually plays a role into the franchise sales world and really how it fits. And again, a really great way of thinking about it is really the generation piece, the nurturing piece. I would say the middle piece, I don't really have a great name for it yet. Maybe Jam, you have a better one that I don't. But really then the closing and what happens after the sale are super important ways to really think about franchise development. And I think that dividing it into those four tranches is a really nice way of thinking about your tech stack on the franchise development side. So I encourage you to kind of draw a little map. I remember the first time that I ever had this discussed with me, it was in the offices of Metric Collective, and we literally drew out a funnel. And that's why Frame Funnel has the name it has today. And so we drew it out, and we had to kind of figure it out, what was the process actually, and what did it look like, and where does technology play a role? And so I encourage you guys all to do the same, because I think that it really is a great way of visualizing, what is required. So with that, Nicole, I want to just bring it back to you for a second. Where can people go if they want to learn a little bit more about Frame Funnel and Franchise Help?
Looks like I've frozen, but hopefully you can hear me.
We can.
Okay. They can go to franchisehelp.com and franfunnel.com, or you can reach out to me, Nicole at metriccollective.com.
Perfect. Okay. And Greg, how about for Silvercrest and LMAT?
Silvercrestadvertising.com, and I can be reached at gcook@sca-mail.com.
Perfect. And Jam, how about you for FranchiseSoft?
FranchiseSoft.com. There's nothing hard about that. So FranchiseSoft.com is probably the easiest way to get in touch, or you can check me out on LinkedIn. Just look up Jam Hashmi.
Perfect. Well, folks, thank you very much for listening today. And I really, really appreciate having these awesome panelists on the line with me too. We are going to be doing more of these. Next, you guys are going to be dealing with our resident Greek, Mr. Dean Hatzatheodosio, who will be leading an operational discovery day for all of the technology that is encompassed with that. He's probably going to have to do 12 of them to really make up for all of the things that they do in the operational world. So stay tuned for those if you are an operations executive and if you are looking to listen to that. And thanks again for everybody for listening today. Cheers.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.